This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listeners. This is Brian, and we're at a full ship now. So we got Mr. Boettcher and Ms. Berlin. They're all back. This is Breaking Down Security. Yay! Yes, Miss Berlin was setting the jet or whatever she was doing,
I was sick and traveling and
yep,
a whole bunch of stupid stuff.
So Admiral Berlin, you were at various cons recently. You were at GurCon. You just came back from Oreilly, right?
Yeah. So GurCon, I gave like the 1 hour preview thing of the tutorial I did at Oreilly, and my 1 hour one at GurCon like bombed because most of my demos failed on stage.
Oh.
But they did. It was amazing in the tutorial, like well enough that I'm going to end up giving it as a class.
Wow.
So
cool.
Yeah, it went really well. I had like 14 walkthroughs, and only one of them didn't work. So that kind of made me happy. I think there was like a class of 25, I think I had. And a lot of the stuff I did was like in group policy. I showed them a little bit of what you can do with OSINT. And then, so it was weird because I had such a very large range of expertise in the class, which it was hard. I kind of just went over the material how I had planned on doing it, but I made sure to like over-explain certain things because Jerry Bell was in there, but then I had like a girl that did front-end web dev for a startup.
Okay.
So, and then like I had a red teamer in there. So like there was huge disparity in skill sets. So it was interesting.
Jerry's an executive, so you had to talk really slow and use short words.
I did. I talked super slow.
Puppets and shit, right?
With very large words.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you give him a copy of the things explainer before you?
Yeah, I gave him a report at the end too. So.
Wow.
I think he just ignored all 3 hours and read the report at the end.
Oh, okay. All right. Love you, Jerry.
The first page.
He doesn't listen to the show anyway. He doesn't listen to the show, so it's all good. He's too busy doing his own show right now, so he doesn't listen to the show. But well, I'm glad you had fun with that.
Yeah.
Pardon everybody who's listening. I'm about to lose my voice. But so you said the demos didn't work so much at GurCon. Did you go back and create videos of the demos actually working?
I didn't, but I probably will for class just because I only had I didn't have very much time in between the two, and almost the entire time I was sick. Like I almost canceled going to Oreilly just because I was still sick in the airport.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I went. I was
cool.
fine. But yeah, if I do it for class, I'll definitely record the walkthroughs.
Yeah. And this is an Oreilly class that you'd be doing it for?
Yeah, I might do it for our podcast too.
Thank you. I was wondering if that was actually going to come about, or you'd be like, oh.
If there's enough interest, I'll do it for our podcast.
Okay, well,
it's only 3 hours, but
that's fine. You do 2 1.5 hour classes or something like that, or you can do a straight 3 hour shot. So that'd be good too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Because a lot of the stuff that I showed people to do, you do for free.
Right.
Really, everything that I showed people how to do, you do for free. The only more advanced thing that I didn't have people walk through was setting up Snort.
Okay.
And really,
very cool. Very cool. Mr. Boettcher, you've been doing some interesting things at work, yeah?
Well, just fighting the good fight every day. I did see. Well, there's this new thing called DDE. Going around, which stands for Dynamic Data Exchange. I really I think my favorite decade is the 80s. A lot of the music from the 80s, it's kind of when I grew up, and it was good times, right? We were, the U.S. was booming in the 80s. We had a lot of good times back then.
I'm imagining,
and that's when this thing called Dynamic Data Exchange came out.
I'm imagining you with
1987.
a flock of seagulls hairdo.
Yeah. Bell bottoms.
And pink hair. Bell bottoms in the 80s? No.
Oh, sorry. Parachute pants.
There you
Yeah, I
go.
had some parachute pants.
Yeah.
But I was tiny.
Goodness.
But yeah.
So what does DDE
That's when this
do?
came out. Windows introduced it in Windows 2.
Say what?
Right? So I know the last time you heard Windows 2 was back in the 80s.
I never heard of Windows 2.
Well, one thing I guess that's good and bad about Windows is they backport a lot of stuff, right? So they're backwards compatible with all these things. And I think DDE was sort of replaced by Oreilly, but it is still usable. Now,
Okay.
we first heard people talking about it, I guess, a month ago. It's November right now, so maybe September, October timeframe when it was hitting Twitter. And so I looked it up, came up with some mitigations for it, some registry keys. I think someone has a website. Maybe we'll look it up, put it in the show notes of all of the registry keys you can have to disable it. But what it does is when you open a document or when you want to update a document, your document can automatically go to a database and upload its data.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the idea behind this hack, where you can actually upload some malicious code from a website using dynamic data exchange. So what's old is new again, right?
Right.
In order to get this to work, though, you get a pop-up that says, "Hey, do you want to update links?" This is the default in Microsoft Office, and then you have to click yes. And then it says, "Hey, I need to start command.exe. Can you let me please start command.exe?" And then you have to click yes again. And that's when your computer gets compromised at that point.
Okay.
Unless you have some sort of a mitigation for it.
Wow.
You can shut this off, but this past week, I got an email that said, "Hey, so-and-so is going to be doing some corporate training for your organization. And here, learn how to dynamically keep your files updated, through different things like Oreilly, dynamic data, and such stuff. So learn how to do that." And I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" But, a lot of organizations use these dynamic documents, spreadsheets especially, and it's a cool thing to have because your data you can send documents to other people and they don't have to have a database background, or you don't have to build a whatever to dynamically update data. You can just send this document that updates itself, and they can get reports based on the whatever your forte is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that surprisingly, most of the malware we're getting, probably 50% or more, has to do with this dynamic data exchange to actually compromise a host.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Everybody's trying it.
So in the word options, at least the link I've got, ghacks.net here, it says under advanced general tab, it says update automatic links at open, and that blocks DDE. So it's that easy to block the DDE stuff then. And is it only in Office?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Well, unless you have OS 2.
Actually, no.
I read that OS 2 was the first time that Word and Excel was debuted.
Crazy. That's sick. All right, so everything old is new again, is what you're saying. So, so can this be GPO'd away, or
Yes.
Okay, so as long as you can force those GPO changes, good.
Yeah, but a lot of organizations you can't, because then you'll break people's stuff.
Do you have, for instance? Because what?
Well, the documents won't be updated automatically. right? So if you send a report to someone and they want fresh data, that will not work. They'll have to go in and manually update it themselves.
Oh.
And of course, that's hard. So I can see companies saying, no, this is going to cause a lot of problems for our customers, for our people, things like that.
Yeah.
That's why you can't just blanket get rid of macros, because a lot of people do use macros.
Sure.
You'd be surprised.
Yes.
It's a lot of useful reasons to use them, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, macros are pretty great if you're in Word and Excel all day.
Yeah. Well, InfoSec runs on Excel, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Very interesting. Okay.
So be careful. Don't just go in and break stuff. Gotta get the approvals.
And that's
plan the correct way to break it.
Get approval.
Is that in all versions of Microsoft Office, or is that just the Windows versions?
I don't know.
I'm going to go look now.
Check that.
I'm going to go look now because I use the Microsoft Offices on my. If I can just not do three things at once.
I haven't even installed it on my new Mac. I forgot.
All right, there we go.
I mean, there is no comparison. I mean, Office and Excel are way better than any other option out there.
I like Google Docs still. I mean, we use it for the podcast, and I still use it at work quite a bit because, when I'm doing spreadsheets or something for CSV output for vulnerability management, they can watch the progress as you're going along and fill in things as you're happening. So
yeah, but if you send out docs with macros, that could work too.
Oh, that's true. I don't see an advanced tab or anything like that in Word preferences on Office 2016, so I'll have to go and poke around and find that later on. So anyway, all right, well, we got other things we're doing here, so let me close my work. There we go. All right, now I'm back at deck on.
It is funny that someone finds this, right? I say find, it's really old, but they discover it again, and then in real malware, coming into the organizations, they start using it within a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
Just
though,
a new vector.
There's the keys here for the registry to disable DDE. One, Mac doesn't have a registry per se, so it may not be possible to disable it the exact same way that the links are in the show notes, or Microsoft or the Microsoft Office on Mac doesn't suffer from this. I'm not going to say yes or no either way, but just know that the links that we're putting in the show notes mostly work for Microsoft's Office in Microsoft Windows. So there you go. All right. The topic this week, if you will, if we still have any listeners listening. You
think we lost them all already?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody's asleep now. So I've had some problems the last couple of weeks at work with knowledge of various systems in our environment. There's a cabal of knowledge out there about various things, and depending on who you work with or work for, what company you work for, a lot of that stuff is closely guarded for some reason. Application, assets and those things. It seems like it takes a lot just to get that information enumerated. What's in your environment, and I think it's to the detriment of our environments by not knowing what all is in our environment, because we can't patch the things that we don't see in our environment. So I thought we'd talk a little bit this week about asset management and why it's so important. So, we've done the show before, CIS Top 20, Critical Controls. It used to be SANS Top 20. They probably still call it SANS Top 20. But the first thing on the list is always, know what you have running in your environment. And number 2 is actually
know
what
what's
software,
in your environment.
Yeah, know what hardware is running in your environment, whether it be switches, routers, VMware servers, other servers, web servers, WAFs, those kinds of things. And then number 2 is know what software is in your environment.
Otherwise, if you go through all the rest of everything else, you have to start all over again when you find new things.
Sure. Yeah, and it makes things very difficult. But so yeah, I mean. And, with whatever's running in your environment, you've got software running on those things. That can be its own whole messy ball of wax there where, you've got assets running software that shouldn't be on there. So we're talking about software build outs and half-baked images and, standards of building out servers. So, Ms. Berlin, you've worked with a few companies in the client customer model here, or client MSSP model. Did they require customers to give you a list of servers that were running in the environment to put agents and things on?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the ones that I always asked for had to do with the types of security alerting that we would provide. So, I would need mail servers, DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, vulnerability scanners, ingress and egress points. There's a list of 10 things that I needed. And, important CIDR blocks. So, if you have all of your SQL servers on one netmask, what IP address scheme are you using for that? Which ones do you not care about? Out of the last 3 years doing it, I've had one customer reply back right away with, here's everything. This is what we have.
Yeah.
We know all the names, all the VLANs, all the IP addresses, what's on it. Everybody else, it either never came through or it took them quite a while of hunting things down.
Was that a large multinational corporation, or was it like a 3-man shop?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but a lot of the ones that didn't have it were everyday household names.
Right. I don't know what is so difficult about that. I mean, is it just they don't want to take the time to document like we hear with developers doing things, or is it just everything changes so quickly? I mean, with the DevOps and whatever it is they calls it these days, server that you've just stood up may not be there in 5 minutes. So I mean, especially using micro instances.
It should be automated. If you don't have a way to automate that stuff, it's going to be impossible.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's not a requirement. So if I can spend an hour doing something rather than an hour and 10 minutes, I'm going to choose the hour, right? And have that 10 minutes of doing whatever the hell I want instead of documenting, right? That's the mentality. So if it's not a requirement, it's not going to get done, and it never does.
Right. Well, I mean, is it that we as security professionals have not shown the importance of knowing what's in our environment? Is it a failure on our part?
Probably depends on the company.
That is true.
Yeah, it depends. It could be a failure on the security team's fault for not emphasizing and creating that policy that says you have to have asset management.
Right.
And somebody has to be at fault for not documenting something whenever it's found.
Yeah.
Right. So you do vulnerability management and you know what all the IPs are reporting back.
Yeah.
So you should have a pretty good list to correlate with the asset management system. If you find an IP that you don't know what that corresponds to and it's not documented, somebody has to know about it.
Sure.
Right. And there should be a process.
It's going to take a long time for you to find out what that is, find the person who created it, find out what it's doing, why it was built, all that stuff. That could take hours when it could have taken somebody 10 minutes to just document it.
Yeah.
You know,
right?
what makes it really what makes it faster than ours is you just shut off the port.
Oh, wow. Well,
somebody will call really fast.
that would assume the InfoSec person actually has the ability to do that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, if you do have a policy that says you must have asset management, then you probably have the authority to shut that port off because it's not documented.
True.
How do you know it's not nefarious, right? You're on the security team. Somebody put something there that's not supposed to be there. Shut it off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Then once the executives sign off on these policies, then you can bring down the hammer with no retribution, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My thing coming from vulnerability management is I get a list of IP addresses and DNS doesn't always work in your environment, or you may not have something that is doing internal name resolution to an IP address, or if you're running in a massive environment where, boxes turn over quickly, you may not have an actual name. I mean, some of the boxes that are in my environment are just IP dash with the IP address, and that's the host name. That's the name of the host. So some people have really fancy, our naming scheme is based on Lord of the Rings or all the Transformers or whatever. But if you've got thousands of or there may not be a way of properly naming these things. So when I get an IP address, I'm if you're doing vulnerability management or you're trying to look up where these boxes should fit, that actually wastes time trying to figure out, one, where the box is, what the box is. Does this scan jive with the function of the box? If I've got a web server, I shouldn't be seeing port 21 necessarily running on it. If it's a database server, I shouldn't be seeing port 4444 or anything like that. Having accurate asset management makes everybody's job easier, because then I can go, okay, this box has port 4444 running on it. It's a mail server, and I know that Bob is the mail server admin, so we need to get with him and coordinate some kind of fix. And obviously having port 4444 running on that is a major issue. That being usually the default port for a interpreter shell, so or a reachback anyway. So having proper information like that is very key. And sometimes you can actually get a lot more information. Actually, you have to do OSINT on your own network if you don't have proper asset management. I mean, there's all kinds of places where you can pull that information from if you don't have a dedicated CMDB. There's patching systems. So if you're using things like Chef or what's the other one? Chef or Ansible. If you're using Chef or Ansible or something like that in your environment, you can pull information about your hosts that way. WSUS if you're using Windows Update Service or server or whatever the version is now that's not WSUS. Those are always good ways of doing it. Anybody else have any other thoughts or suggestions on how you can get information?
Well, remember when our mutual friend back at the place, he wrote his own asset management system.
Yes, the
guy at the
and
one
he actually
time
built an Excel doc with macros so that you could, and then I built a web page in PHP to actually get that data from his database.
You did do that
onto the website, so you could go view it. Remember that? And he wrote a script that would actually run on every machine in the environment and grab what the configuration was of that machine, what was running on it, whether it was updated, all that stuff. So it was a homegrown system because I guess he couldn't get the budget to get an enterprise asset management system, and he created his own. Okay, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But it was something that he had to do to save his team time, to save everybody time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So asset management...
You don't know what something is. You just go into the web page and say, oh, okay, do a search. There it is.
Yep.
Okay, it has this configuration. It's for this. It was built by so and so.
Yep. Yep.
So you don't waste time.
Yep. So asset management doesn't necessarily have to be an expensive proposition. I mean, there are enterprise level CMDBs or content management databases, but for a small environment, you could get away with an Excel spreadsheet or a small I don't want to say access database because that's just horrid, but I think an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of small MySQL database or something.
And I've used Open Audit for a couple different companies.
Open Audit?
Yeah,
it's like that?
It's just I don't know if it's open source, but it's a free software that does there
it is.
Pulls from WMI, I think.
Okay, yeah, Open Audit.
It has its drawbacks once you get to a certain amount of machines, but it was pretty good for being free.
Why does it run in Oracle or something?
No,
Oracle's not free, dude.
Like you have to manually call things that aren't on the network anymore.
Oh, okay.
Or at least you used to. I haven't used it in like 5 years, but it was a pretty good product.
Yeah, there are some that use like you said WMI calls or SNMP. If you've got that running on your network and you're doing broadcasts, it'll also do SNMP traps, so you can pull that kind of information as well. If you're using AWS, at least in my shop, we have where we can query through the command line, IP address, host, when it started, who started it, and we also have an internal system that will also map to our chef. So if we go to a command line, we can type, locate, or it's not locate, it's something else, but I'm not going to mention the exact command here. And you put the IP address and it'll tell you the name of the host that's connected to it. Which is really, 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 really great, and it didn't cost any money. So a lot of these things, it really just takes like this Open Audit, depending on how big it is. This is pretty cool. It looks free-ish. Anyway, but yeah, you may have to do some OSINT on your network if you're doing InfoSec. Tripwire if you're using any kind of file integrity monitoring. Anything with an agent, I think, would probably be fairly easy to pull reports and to find out the information on those systems. I don't know anybody who doesn't have some kind of agent, whether it be antivirus or your EDR system, or if you're using any one of the top 2 vulnerability scanners, they now have an agent option that you have to install to get more in-depth scanning. So those are things you can use as well.
And I think the end-all be-all that you should tie everything back to is ARP tables.
ARP, oh yes, ARP.
Because if you don't have a physical address, you're not going to be on the network. So you need to tie everything back to a physical address if you can. Sure.
Yeah. You're gonna get IP address and MAC, which that's a fairly good start. But if you've got several thousand systems, it's gonna be hard to find those. And if you've got VMs, that's gonna be even harder to find. So router and switch tables are always good to query. That was a good one. And then DNS, if you've got any DNS or something. So you almost have to act like a hacker and hack your own network. So and
information gathering is crazy. If you're starting from nothing for asset management.
Yep. It can be difficult. But for
just Nmap every RFC 1918 address in your whole.
Yeah. Well, you don't necessarily need to know the host name. If you know that 10.92.92.92 is a web server, and you can, as long as you can reach out to somebody, because that's the other place where you can pull asset data from, is your infrastructure people or your the people in your environment. You ask what the IP address is, and they go,
it's important. It should be in DNS anyways.
True. Very true. But you can find out if that's a web server, or if that's DNS, or if that's mail, or if that's a file share or something, and at that point, using Nmap, and you may, the InfoSec people may actually be the ones who have to start the asset, tagging and the asset management process, because for the most part, we're the ones who need it.
Yeah, and I think there should be a process too. So starting with purchasing or the help desk or whoever attaches crap to the network. Like,
right.
Before a port gets turned on or before a PC gets commissioned or VM gets turned on, there should be like, here's what you do for this process. You need to add it here, and you need to make sure it's in DNS, and you need to run this script on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys, number 3 in the CIS critical security controls, secure configurations for hardware and software.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that have something to do with asset management as well? I mean, when you standardize your configurations, that is, in my opinion, a documented asset as well, right? Or part of it.
Sure. Yeah, and the web server running on the box is a subcomponent of the server itself, because that's why the server exists, to be the web server of, it further delineates.
A certain way.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got the first 3, the most important CIS controls right there having to do with asset management.
Right.
Right. So why do so few organizations have good asset management if it's the top 3?
I think it's a systemic issue, isn't it?
What's that?
I think it's a systemic issue. I mean, they build up over time. When they were a new company, they didn't worry about that. They played fast and loose, and then one day they wake up and they've got 500 employees and several thousand servers, and they're like, oh, crap, how did we get here? And, you have that one guy who's been around forever, and he knows where everything is and everything's located and what, IP address scheming is. And, 1092.92.92. Yeah, that's in the web server IP range or whatever. Or
right.
If you're lucky, most companies are like, oh yeah, we use DHCP on everything. So you've got mail servers over here.
Just
with
search
your
the
web
wiki
server.
and you'll find. You might find it.
Search the wiki.
Did you search the wiki?
Yeah, it's on SharePoint.
Oh god. I hope to never have to ever work anywhere that uses SharePoint again.
Oh yeah, well.
That's my goal in life.
I've never actually been to a place that actually used it properly, and
can you use it properly? Is there a way that you can use it properly?
I'm looking over my shoulder because my wife uses it extensively, so she loves it. So yeah, I don't know, and I'm sure there's a way to use it properly, but like most wikis, unless you've got somebody who's being custodian on those things, your information is going to get stale real quick, which is why it's important to constantly monitor your asset management and make sure that it's up to date. You need to do audits on that stuff, to make sure your data doesn't get stale. Or you're going to find out that the wiki says that your server's one thing when in fact it's doing something else, and you might raise some alarms. So
right,
yeah. So I guess the downside of asset management systems is once that you get one, you really need to secure it, because it can be a goldmine of information for a hacker who gets in. Because it gives names, IP, email addresses, phone numbers.
They don't have to do all the work that you just did to find everything.
Exactly. It took you 2 weeks and they got 2 minutes. So, make sure you got proper access controls. So okay. So who gets access to the asset management system? Would it be the same people who helped create it, or would it be like, should everybody have access to the asset management system, or just maybe the data owners? And the data owners are everybody in the company. Then everybody in the company has access to it, right?
Yeah, I'd say data owners, data custodians, whoever you want to.
Mr. Boettcher, how about you?
Director level, maybe.
Yeah.
I guess IT and security.
Just IT.
Definitely. I mean, they're going to be adding and modifying stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you could attach it, I think everybody wants all these integrations with their data and their systems and stuff. I think there's some systems that just don't need to have a lot of integrations, and I think asset management systems are one of those. Unless you want to tie it to a ticket system or something like that, and then you're looking at doing something like Jira or the Atlassian suite, which is its own pile of headache. But, like Mr. Boettcher said, if, that home built system that he helped create didn't need to have any kind of, fancy integrations. It just worked. So
For monitoring.
Yeah. You just need to do audits to make sure the people who have access to it need access to it. So, because, like I put in the show notes here, coverage gaps will cause you to lose your asset visibility. So they've stood up a bunch of new boxes, and all of a sudden you don't know what's on those boxes. It can be a problem. So I have a question though. What do you do with things like virtualization or Docker? Do we want to keep asset information for those?
Only if it's automated. Otherwise, that could just be that. It'll never be up to date if it's not automated.
Yeah, I was thinking about that myself because I wanted to set up a Docker farm over here, but I wanted to keep track of what I've got running on the boxes, and so I didn't know if you keep track of the instance that all the Dockers are created from, or if you have the Dockers report in on a semi-regular basis. But the idea is they're supposed to be super lightweight. And the same thing goes with the VMs. If you've got a VM farm and you got 500 VMs running on those boxes, do you treat each one of those VMs as its own separate machine, or do you treat the box that it runs on as one, and then it's got a bunch of instances running underneath? So
I think all separate.
Well, then now you've got 500 boxes to keep track of, but they all reside on this one box. So,
the hardware you only have to keep track of once.
Right.
But, if you're going to keep track of, administrative level accounts, that has access to whatever, there are 200 SQL servers out of the 500, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, isn't it? Does the VM, so do the instances, are they just software that you need to know which software is running in your environment, or do you want to?
And the OS, and the name, and the IP address.
Yeah. That's
true.
They all have a MAC address.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about and OS. That if you're required by law or something to keep track of your software licenses, you need to,
or by the vendor, because you have to pay for those eventually.
True. But if you have 500 copies of something running on your network, and you're only supposed to have 350, and you don't even know where your assets are being tracked, or you've cloned VMs or something, you can be in violation of that. So that's why asset management would be important as well, to keep track of what licenses are running where, and so that way you don't run afoul of any fines or anything. So
automation is the key. If you can automate it, you just saved yourself a lot of future hours there.
Speaking of automation, did you see that story about the guy who would automate anything with a script if it took him more than 90 seconds to do?
What?
Yeah.
90 seconds?
Yeah, hold on. God.
It would have to take me more than 3 weeks for me to automate something because I'm that bad.
Yeah. No, the idea was he had scripts, and he'd been there for apparently ever, and he had figured out how, there it is. Programmer wrote scripts to secretly automate a lot of his work, Business Insider. So they
secretly though, why would you have to do it secretly?
Don't know. So it was shared by a programmer called Nihad Abasov, and he said that if anything required more than 90 seconds of his time, he wrote a script to automate that. So he had one script that sends a text message to his wife that says "late at work" and automatically picks reasons from a preset list of them. It sent this text anytime there was activity with his logon on the company's server after 9 p.m. He wrote another script relating to a customer he didn't like, given the not nice name he chose for the script. He scans his inbox for an email from the customer using words like help, trouble, and sorry, automatically rolls the guy's database to the latest backup, then sends a reply, no worries, mate, be careful next time. So apparently this had happened so many times, he needed to have a script to roll the guy's database from the last good backup and send out an email. So
okay, I have known people like that I probably could have automated stuff.
Yeah,
like, I've deleted my entire blank drive, net use, whatever.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So he did that. So yeah, another script fired off an email excuse, not feeling well working from home if he wasn't logged into the servers by 8:45 a.m. He called that script the hangover. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's great stuff. I mean, because we don't think about automating stuff that we do regularly for some reason. I don't know. Does it make you feel good to have to do repetitive tasks?
Does it make you feel good? No.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, what motivated the guy to do this? Obviously, he worked late a lot because he had something that made sure his wife, sorry, honey, late at work, server died or something, whether it be fake or not. And, so I mean, I just find it interesting that people have to automate those things. If you're at work late enough and long enough and often enough that you have to automate those things up.
It's probably a hobby at that point.
True.
Taking it to that extreme, it's just something you do just to say you did it.
Yeah.
But I think we should, take some advice from that. Like maybe there are a lot of things we could automate.
Yeah.
At our job. Just think about that. Anything, maybe not 90 seconds, but if you do it more than a few times, then maybe you should think about automating that somehow. Be creative.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so that's the massive appeal. Which scripting language? Bash, Ruby, Python?
Whatever you can get away with that you feel most comfortable with.
I think that's the problem, though. People do the repetitive tasks because they don't have the time to sit down and actually learn a scripting language. Or if they do know a scripting language, it might be beyond their abilities to script stuff like that up. Or they need API access that they don't normally have.
Yeah, I mean, it's all on whatever. I mean, what do you do at night after the kids go to bed, right? Do you watch your TV show?
Yes.
Or do you learn a scripting language so you can, automate some of your tasks, right?
I mean, if you could do I also read something else earlier, like you should try to do scripting or learn programming at least 20 minutes a day or something. I mean, I could almost do that. I mean, I don't see any problems with that, but I mean, you have to keep at that. It's like learning French or something on that Babbel or Duolingo or whatever. You got to keep at it.
There's got to be a book like learning Python in 10 minutes. Right, you have 10-minute lessons. I remember those 10-minute books. I got one. Learning Linux in 10 minutes.
I was gonna say there's an app. There's an app that I had. It was just like a Learn Python app that was kind of the same premise. It was like a daily exercise or whatever.
I think I found that one. It's called Inky or something, ENKI or something like that. And you can learn Python or Ruby or Java or Git.
Right.
That's how I learned that Git was so freaking complicated. But you really only use like 3 commands in the whole thing.
I really have to look it up every time I use it because it's very rare that I use it.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so what did we learn today? That asset management is hard but very worthwhile and should be done. If your infrastructure people aren't doing it, then you as information security people should be doing it as much as possible. So that way you can fill in the gaps and understand what is going on in your environment. Because it will help you as a time saver in the long run. So, yep. All right. Well, that's all I've really got. I mean, we've got some other stuff that we can always talk about later on because it's something that just never falls out of place. So,
we also learn to stop, collaborate, and listen.
Okay, easy there.
Was that the 80s?
Yeah, just barely. Just
barely the 80s?
Yeah,
barely.
I never listened to that kind of music.
In fact, I may have to look that up.
I only listened.
Look it up. I'm not sure if it was 80s or not.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah.
Was it? All right.
Yeah, it was. I only listened.
Might have been the 90s.
Dude.
It might have been 91.
Oh, let me see. I actually watched his show on
Okay,
Home and Garden.
security podcast.
Yeah.
We went off track. Sorry about that.
I was 6
I
in
feel partially
1990.
responsible for that.
Yeah, I was like 8. So.
Because I feel like it was when I was in grade school, at least.
Yep. So, Mr. Boettcher, if people wanted to talk to you more about what DDE is and how they can protect themselves against dynamic data exchange, how would they go about doing so?
They can hit me up on the Twitters or on the Slack channel. My Twitter handle is @BoettcherPwned, and obviously I'm on the BreakSec Slack.
Right on.
You can find me in the Hallway Con or the Malware channel and various other channels.
Cool. Miss Berlin, same question to you.
Same for me. I've actually been more active in Slack lately. It's @InfoSister, INFOSYSTIR.
I think the reason y'all are more active on the Slack nowadays is we have a no drama requirement.
Yes.
No bullshit.
That's why
I mean, seriously,
Man,
we don't talk
I've
about
had
politics.
so much drama lately, just on like Facebook and stuff, that I've defaulted to Slack now.
Yeah, we don't. We have a no politics thing, so we don't post anything about politics unless it's of a.
It's amazing.
Unless it's a specific infosec bent, like this legislation is going to do X or something. But yeah, we try to keep anything having to do with any kind of government stuff out of it. And yeah, I found myself being on Slack quite a bit more as well. So if you want to join us, please feel free to join us on our Slack at breaksec.signup.team. It's HTTPS, but Miss InfoSec Sherpa told me that it looked like the cert was no longer trusted. So I also will put a link in the show notes to a specific Slack invite. So that's also available. So yeah, breaksec.signup.team. Maybe the cert expired or something. Yeah, it's saying your connection isn't private. Ooh.
My new BreakSec business cards were a hit.
Really? Oh wait,
Just
that
to
was
let
the
you
one
know.
with you with the creepy.
That with the creepy face? Oh yeah, people really liked them.
Okay, not to say that your face is creepy, but
It's creepy in that picture.
Okay,
It really is.
All right. That's cool.
That's what I was going for, though.
Okay, right on. Yeah, there'll be a link in the show notes to a proper Slack invite. Looks like that it does say your connection is not private, so I wouldn't trust it just for my own edification. So the problem is the Slack invite's like 800 Brazilian characters, so if you're going to want one, you can send anybody on the show an invite or a DM on Twitter or something and say, hey, join us, and then we can do that. So you can follow me on Twitter at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. BreakSec Podcast is at BreakSec, BRAKESEC on Twitter. We're on TuneIn app. We have iTunes. Our Patreon is just banging. Apparently, is banging something cool? Can I still say banging? Ask wake your kid up and find out. They're
He's
cool.
still awake downstairs.
Okay. So anyway,
I could text him real quick.
It's going crazy. I actually, one of the reasons is we started a new class, our Intro to Reverse Engineering course with Tyler Hudak at SecShoggoth on Twitter, SecShoggoth. And it's going really well. We've got about 25 people in there now. So he's gonna do that for the next 3 or 4 sessions, and then we're gonna release those videos for free. But I'm learning so much from that class; it's fantastic. So we're gonna be unpacking some malware soon.
Nice.
I know, right? Uh-oh. So I'm gonna have to find me a Windows XP box. Oh, speaking of Windows XP, you know the modern.ie link that everybody seems to use? It's like, oh, if you want a free Windows VM, you can go here to modern.ie and get all this stuff. The guy who helps create modern.ie VMs is in our Slack.
What?
Yes. He actually,
I've never heard of modern.ie, so
modern.ie. So if you're doing, him and his team actually started it for web application testing, so that people could do web application testing of their other applications. But like Mick Douglas and all the SANS folks and Tyler and them, they're all like, yeah, use this. It's a free 180-day evaluation, fully, functional version of Windows. And he's like, yeah, I had to smirk when I saw that because he signed up for a class. And he's like, I had to smirk because that, our team uses that. And I was like, oh, that's freaking awesome. So
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's kind of surreal. So anyway, we do have a Patreon, not just for signing up for the class, but if you just want to leave something in the, as a tip jar, that would be awesome. We're on iTunes, Google Play Store. Please leave feedback if you find, you like the show. That's even worth more to us than Patreon. If you want to do the Patreon thing, that's great too. But leaving us a review on iTunes or Google Play would be fantastic. So, a couple weeks you're going to be at B-Sides Wellington, Miss Berlin, right?
I can't wait.
Me neither.
I was extremely tired of traveling, but I'm really excited to go to New Zealand.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And really, New York was amazing.
Really? What'd you do there?
I skipped out one of the days of the conference, and a friend of mine took me around New York.
Nice.
And that was a lot of fun.
Times Square and all that?
Yeah, everywhere.
Oh,
we went to Brooklyn Bridge, Times Square,
Central Park.
Central Park.
Nice.
We walked past a prison. We got lost a couple times. We went to Chinatown.
Where'd you go to a prison at? Did you go to Rikers or something? What is this?
No, it was like the New York Correctional Facility or something, right near the entrance to the Brooklyn Bridge, kind of.
Okay. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, I ate some amazing food.
Oh yeah.
It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so B-Sides Wellington sold out, but I would imagine if you wanted to stand outside in line waiting for Miss Berlin like an iPhone X, I think she could probably come out and sign some autographs or books or something. So
you laughed, but my book signing went really well.
Oh, how many people did you get? Did you sell out of books?
They were like elbowing for tickets, so they only had like 25 tickets for books.
Yeah.
And they went in, I don't know, under 5 minutes.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, it's not ShmooCon good, but it's
That's good. Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's good to be wanted,
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's all I've got for this week. Mr. Boettcher, do you have anything before we go?
That's it.
Okay. That was it from Breaking Down Security. Hope you have a good week. Be nice to one another. Stay warm. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.